Welcome to Slice Serve, a new tennis podcast by tennis nerds for wannabe tennis nerds. This is your place to satisfy your curiosity and leave feeling just a little bit smarter and appreciative of this game that we all love. Let's get started. Welcome to part 2 of 10 questions from a 10-year-old on tennis. So we did the first 5 questions in our previous episode, and now we're going to dive into the next 5 questions in this episode. So if you haven't heard those 5, it's okay to hear them out of order, but go check out part 1. But yeah, those first 5 were interesting. Raghu, I think you were, baffled by a couple, as was I. So you ready for the next 5?
Yeah, they were hilarious. They were inquisitive. They're smart, actually, and it stumped me for most part. So I had fun.
Awesome. Then I got more coming your way. So actually, there's 5 more, but it's really 6. So it's like a 5A and a 5B. But you ready for question 6?
I am. Let's go.
Okay. This is the year of the Olympics. So the question is, how many players qualify to play in the Olympics for their country?
Oh.
So to clarify, yeah, so just to give a little bit additional color, this was sort of the question. So the kind of additional interpretation there is like, the way as I thought about the question itself, it's like, who qualifies to play and which countries get to play, because this is the Olympics, right? So it's like I always have growing up, I have these memories of Tonga and Tuvalu, doing their Olympic walk, and I'm like, I don't know any players from there. Do they get to play if there was one? So I was very curious as well. So just to give you some context there, but yeah, what's your thinking?
This is a hard one because there is a gold at stake, gold medal, so multiple 3 medals at stake, and it's much harder than I think a Grand Slam, which just goes with the ranking and a few wild cards and whatnot.
Okay.
This one.
So how many people do you think play in the Olympics tennis?
My guess is the same like Grand Slam, like 128. Because Olympics is over a period of a month, so they can fit in a 2-week tournament. So that's where I would start.
Okay. But
it gets tricky as to how many per country, because some countries are loaded and others are not.
Also note that, there's 200 plus countries now, and only 128 players in your draw.
Yeah, so I'm going to take a wild guess here. So I'm thinking like 2 players per country max in singles.
Okay.
And 1 team in doubles. And then you have to be ranked, I don't know, in the top, making it up here, 250 or something like that to be qualified. So you have to be qualified through that, and then then it's 2 per country, something like that.
Okay. No,
I'm going to try to make the math work.
Yeah, so I would say you're actually not too far off. Although, like, where I got stuck, to be honest, as I was thinking about it, is like, as I mentioned earlier, okay, take any number of the countries from the African subcontinent, right? Like Niger or Congo. I'm sure there's like a top tennis player from those countries. Do they get to play? Should they get to play? I've never seen them, so shouldn't they? So this is kind of where my head went. But anyway, it turns out you're closer to what's actually correct. But it's not 128. It's actually 64. So it's only half. It's not even like a slam. Okay. But so here's some high level points, just even like from the ITF Olympics page. So the ITF itself has an Olympics page. There's a few, I thought, some interesting points that they highlight. So there's this thing called a National Olympic Committee in every country that gets to participate or in the Olympics. So you must have an NOC, and so those NOCs can nominate athletes for participation. If your country's association rather is a current ITF member in good standing, so that might potentially, invalidate, say, North Korea, possibly. I don't know what good standing is. Oh, good standing probably has something to do with if your country was like busted for doping recently. That could mean, because I think that happened to Russia in one of the recent Olympics. I don't know if it was tennis, but in some other sport. And it has to have been a member since at least 31st of December 2023 for the 24 Olympics, meaning has to be a member of the ITF as well. So, and then there's also some Olympic charter requirements. I don't know all the details. There's probably lots, but I thought that there were a couple of them. There's a Rule 41, which has something to do with the nationality of the competitors itself. This is probably around like, you can't just say I'm like from the States and then play for Germany or things like that. So I bet there's some specifics in there. And then there's a Rule 43, which is the World Anti-Doping Code and the Olympic Movement Code on the Prevention of Manipulation of Competitions. So you have to meet Rule 43. So I guess there's like sub-documents for those, which I didn't get into. So these are like the high-level things for your country to even be allowed to field a player. So having said that, now you get into the actual qualification notes for singles, and it's quite complex. But I'll preface this by saying this is also not complete, because as with all of these things, there's these giant PDF documents with multiple pages. So
I wonder how will they verify all these things if it's so hard to read and recognize.
Yeah, you're probably right. There's probably people with full-time jobs it is to like look into these things. But so as I said earlier, it's not 128, it's only 64 in the draw. And you set up to 2 players. You set up to 2 in a draw of 128. It's actually up to 4 in a draw of 64. I know.
That seems, yeah.
I know. So that ends up biasing to certain countries, right?
So, my initial thought, sorry, is there more to it?
There's more, but go ahead. Yeah.
It reeks of typical Olympics, or, like on the soccer side, the FIFA. Bureaucracy, rules, charters, blah, blah, blah. I mean, ultimately, you want the best players to play and represent countries and at least have a good I think you want to balance good quality players and countries, not just only take, like, for example, top 64, right?
Yeah.
That would not be, I think, in the spirit of Olympics.
Well, so I think maybe you're hinting at this. So ranking does come into play. And so I said there's 64 in the draw, and the constraint is that you can only field 4 from the single country. So out of the 64, though, 56 come in directly by the ranking. So in a perfect world, in the top 56 of the top 100 of ranked players, no country has more than 4, in which case the top 56 automatically qualify. So this seems to be the primary, like the rank is the primary deciding factor. But as you said, if you have more than 4 from the same nation, Spain, then you basically skip over the 5th ranked player. That person cannot play.
So the remaining 8 are wild cards?
Getting there. Out of the 56, so just out of that 4 ranking, another important point for the United States. Guess who doesn't qualify for the Olympics this year?
On the men's side?
Yeah.
Shelton? He's probably in the top.
He's in the top 4.
I don't know. There's a lot of players there, but I don't know how many of them are in the top 56.
Well,
though.
You know this guy? It's Tiafoe.
Oh, wow!
I know.
So has he fallen out of favor?
Well, here's what's interesting about it. Yes, so he was the I think even is the 5th ranked player from the United States in the top 100. However, and I'll get to this in a second, Ben Shelton has decided to pull out of the Olympics, which is a whole other topic. And so I think that means they get to walk down the list, and other players do get to um, participate. So coming back to that, so there's 56 direct ranked, and to your original question, what about the other 8? There are 6 ITF qualifiers, which to me sounds like a reservation quota of sorts,
Yeah.
because
Classic.
it's
Yeah.
it's up to them.
Federations. Yeah.
Um, then there's one spot for the host country. So
Mm.
whoever's actually hosting the Olympics, they can field a player.
Yeah.
Except if the country already has a player that
4.
qualifies through the ranking, then they don't get that spot, which is the case this time, right? So France clearly has players in the top 64, so they don't get to use that spot. And then there's one spot called, it's reserved for universality. I could not figure out what that is, and there was no description of it in the PDF. So I'm supposed to know what this is, and I couldn't from my research. So maybe we'll find out afterwards. But so that's the breakdown. So you could call the 6 ITF qualifiers as the wild cards. So it's like the random.
I can see the hands of many tennis federations who went into and made these rules up to favor themselves, just like how 4 Grand Slam came together.
I think so. I think so, and it's at the
like
ITF's discretion, so they can do whatever the heck they please. It sounds like.
yeah, it's on one hand it's Olympics, but if you see the same guys who show up at Wimbledon and French Open come also to the Olympics, it's just not that exciting to me, to be honest. I need to see diversity,
Well,
and
yeah, and I think the
it-
qualifiers, they had some other sub rules though. Then that's how the wild cards apply, and this is to allow like famous players to end up playing even if they normally couldn't. So
yeah,
yeah, so here are a couple other things. You must be at least 14 years old, similar to Grand Slams. But this is a very important one. You must have participated as a male in the Davis Cup or a woman in the Billie Jean King Cup twice in the last 4 years. So that's another interesting one. Because you should have represented your country already as a prerequisite. And then I have a note here saying there were several other interesting if then else clauses that I didn't get into, but there's a lot of like, but this is sort of like the high level.
I think they need a software to solve this problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, okay, fascinating though. Thanks for digging in. This is more complicated than I thought. I never really delved into the fact like how do these guys even get picked in the first place.
yeah, which also sadly it also confirmed my wondering that okay, if like I said earlier, if there's a top player from Nigeria or the Congo or something, can they play? Sounds like sadly no, because unless literally everybody starts pulling out from the Olympics, which seems to be happening now, you keep walking all the way down the list, and then maybe at some point you hit. Because I went and checked like the draws for prior Olympics, and sure enough, you don't see any. I saw like in 2016 there was one player from the Dominican Republic, but he also happened to be like top 70, so he must have gotten like that, or whatever this universality is. I don't know. So
Yeah, so much for
yeah,
for representing the
I
world.
know.
Yeah.
So this the sub bullet here is, Raghu, do you know, or how do you think Rafael Nadal qualified? Because he has announced he's going to be playing doubles with Carlos.
I wonder if he got the universality ticket.
So it's actually, you're close. It's in that quota of 6, the wild cards, the ITF quota, because they have a clause saying prior gold medalists or prior Grand Slam winners are automatically eligible. And they're eligible, and then the ITF can pick them, I suppose. And so that's... So here's another thing. An athlete who has not achieved direct acceptance, which would be Rafa in this case, because he's not top 64, but who has won a Grand Slam before, I think he's done that, but his ranking still needs to be in the top 400. And so when I checked, on June 15th at least, he was 264 in the world. So clearly not in the top 4 for Spain, but that's, I think, how he ended up qualifying.
Maybe played a few of those tournaments in May just to get into the Olympics,
Yeah, I wonder.
stay relevant. Oh
Yeah,
boy,
so
no,
that's the Olympics for you, Rodrigo.
wow.
Any other parting thoughts?
Now I think when I think about some of the other events, track events like hundreds and 200s, I think they're much more clearer in terms of qualification. I think you have to simply meet the bar. Like
Yeah.
there's no, it doesn't matter which country. I don't think there's any kind of quota or whatever at least in track, as far as I understand.
Mm. Oh, interesting.
And you have to be in the top X to get in, and you have to meet a certain bar to get in. So it's pretty cut and dry
Hmm.
from what I understand. So this one seems much more convoluted.
It kind of does, yeah.
Yeah.
And plus, some of these decisions are made like far in advance, so you can't just suddenly decide that you're going to be getting in either. Apparently, so
Yeah.
cool.
Wow.
So that was about the Olympics.
Ton of new information for me, for sure.
Okay, so let's move on to question 7. I think some of these are now like more rapid fire, quicker fact based questions. So,
Yeah,
here's number 7 for you, Roger. Ready?
I'm all ears.
Who is the tallest and who is the shortest player on the ATP Tour and the WTA Tour? So,
Are you talking about active players?
yeah, let's go with active. I mean, you can take a guess either direction, active or like anyone you can think of, but that doesn't have a huge bearing.
The tallest, it's probably some Serbian dude. It's just my guess. Serbian, Slovakian, and it's one of
Oh, you
those.
mean like Ivo Karlovic? I think that guy is who he
Yeah,
was pretty
I'm
tall.
thinking like a Karlovic in a prototype, or a Dutch guy. It's gonna has to be one of those in those countries. But I thought Hurkacz is pretty tall. I don't know, like if he's the tallest. The American player, he retired. I think I forget.
Isner?
Isner was pretty tall.
Yes.
He was really tall. I think it was 6'6", 6'7" or
6'9".
something.
Yeah, I think it was 6'8" or
6'9".
6'9". Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, unusually tall and also very successful,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
tennis. At least on the men's side.
Okay. Any guesses on the shortest?
I wonder if that guy from Argentina,
Diego Schwartzman.
Schwartzman. I mean, he just 5'5", 5'4", whatever he is. He's always shows up in quarterfinals and really a pain for all the top players. Like it doesn't matter who it is, he always fights and really moves on the court really very 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 well. So I'm thinking Schwartzman.
Okay.
Diego Schwartzman.
All right. Before we go to the women, let's see how you did for men. So,
Yeah.
let's do shortest first because Bing, you got him.
Yeah.
Yes, Diego Schwartzman. He shares the position. He's 5'7", so I have something in common with him.
Okay.
He's retiring this year, as he's already announced. But there's actually a couple others you may have heard of. Sebastian Baez, also from Argentina, is 5'7", superb player. And then this Japanese player, Yoshihito Nishioka, is also 5'7", also pretty good, like lefty. Tallest is actually an American, Riley Opelka. Remember that guy?
The guy with the beard,
The guy
right?
with the beard, yes.
Yeah, I've come across him a few times. I mean, like watching him, but I didn't realize he was like the tallest. He seems like very gangly and
He is 6'11".
Jesus.
So
He picked the wrong sport, or maybe he picked the
I
right
think he
sport.
picked the right sport. It's just I remember when he played, he would just ace his way through most games, like Isner basically. And as you covered, Isner had like our third episode? You covered Isner having basically the most aces ever, right? Because of his height. But Opelka has 2 inches on him, I think.
Jeez.
All right, women's side, what do you got?
I never really notice the height so much on the women's side. Like I think in some men's side, sometimes it can be very glaring.
Yeah.
I have no idea who's the tallest.
Let's take a random guess.
Sabalenka seems to be like tall, but I don't know if she's the tallest.
Okay.
Um,
Any thoughts on shortest? Anyone? I'll give you a hint. This French Open had someone.
No, it doesn't ring. I don't recollect who the shortest because I don't. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Jasmine Paolini, she was like that. Uh,
Oh, I remember. Okay.
she
Okay. Yeah, she did seem like
yeah,
yeah.
she's 5'4",
Okay.
but not the shortest. Turns out 5'2". Lauren Davis from the States, actually, also again an American in the list. So
Mm.
yeah, I was really surprised by that. Yeah, I've seen her play. She played Iga in the U.S. Open the year I happened to visit.
Yeah.
Um, Tallest is actually 6'1". It's lower than I expected, and
Mm.
there's several of them. Venus Williams, Chinwen Zhang, Alicia Parks, Beatrice Haddad-Maia. So a lot of them, 6'1".
Mm.
And then tallest ever player was 6'3". So again, not that tall compared to the men. Uh, and then Iga is 5'9", if you're curious.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
so that's
Yes.
that's just heights.
It seems like there's more evenness in heights among the women players. I don't at least notice the difference in heights. They seem to have similar profile.
Yeah, they
Men,
don't
there's
stand
more
out as much,
disparity.
right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Not, at least
yeah,
not noticeably.
yeah.
Cool. So the follow-up question to that is actually our next question.
Yeah.
Is again a question my son asked me. What happened to Riley Opelka? Because he was on the tour actively and then just sort of disappeared. So what happened? Any random guesses? I think if you took a wild guess, you might end up being right. Because
I wonder if he joined the pickleball tour.
remember, if he did, I wouldn't be covering him.
Oh, he automatic
Automatic
disqualification
disqualification. He gets
from
defaulted
our
from our.
Slicer
That's
podcast.
right. He's
Hmm.
defaulted from our
Yeah.
podcast.
I wonder, like, obviously he wouldn't switch to basketball at this age, after spending his lifetime in tennis. But I wonder what he would do if he quit tennis. What else could he do? I don't know if he played doubles, because I think a lot of tall players do play
Hmm.
doubles. They seem to somehow do better there than singles.
It's interesting you went this direction. It wasn't as
Yeah.
drastic. It was
Yeah.
basically just injury.
Okay.
So just
Yeah.
hip and wrist injury apparently in 2022. And as a nod to such players needing to stay active, because points expire in 1 year, right, on the ATP
Mm,
side. So he was worried about basically falling off the charts completely. So
mm,
he tried playing in October, came back actually. I saw articles like, hey, Riley Opelka's back. So in October 2023, he played in a challenger event, which is like one level down from ATP Tour. He got up to round 4. So basically played, I think, if it's a challenger, I imagine if it's round 4, so probably 3 or 4 matches. I don't know.
mhm.
But that's it. And never played again since then. So he got some points. His injury came back. So as of June 15th this year, he's currently ranked 1,187. So he's outside the top 1,000, which is kind of crazy.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, unlike in many sports, in tennis, I think after a certain height, there's a disadvantage.
Mm.
You don't, or if you're shorter or taller beyond, I think there's probably a good range there. I think your Federers and Djokovic and Nadal's of the world, they fall in that 5'10", 6'2". I've seen a lot of successful players having that similar height
Yeah.
range.
Mm.
So I think if you're taller, then it's harder to bend low on grass on a clay court to retrieve the ball because you have to rely on serve and volley.
Yeah.
And just my sense of that it'll start hurting your back, having to bend much lower to get the ball and run around.
That's a
But
good point. I mean, although
yeah,
his injury was not back, it was hip. So maybe you have a point there. So it's hip and wrist injury. Who knows?
yeah,
Yeah, you're right. He's
yeah,
so tall that very likely more injury prone, right?
yeah.
Interesting. Anyway, so that was
That's
question
a
8.
fun
Fun
fact.
fact, yes.
And you really dug into this guy, Opelka.
All right, ninth one. Um, which is the. So this was actually a question that came to my mind. It was not from a 10-year-old, but I'm sure it'll be interesting to them. So, which is the shortest recorded match in history? Let's just say, yeah, I think men's or women's.
You mean completed
Mm.
match?
In the tour, I guess, like a recorded.
Yeah. So the Steffi Graf, when she won 6-0, 6-0, two
Mm.
sets, I think she did it in 34 or 37 minutes. It's one of those two. Um, that was awfully short. So if it's shorter than that, likely go on the women's side. I can't believe on the men's side. I mean, because they've had to play three
Mm.
sets. Um, I mean, are you looking for who actually played in the match or just how many minutes
Oh, just yeah,
was?
just maybe take a stab at the minutes, and bonus points if you can think of who.
I think somewhere between 25 and 30 minutes, not anything less than that. I mean, I don't know how you can place that quickly. It's just
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Okay. No, I think
Yeah.
you're spot on. So, I think there's lots of data on this on Wikipedia actually. So I would just direct our readers to. There's actually a full page on shortest tennis matches recorded. But this also I found this on like tennisnow.com. So do you remember Bernard Tomic? Remember this guy?
Yeah, was he a German player?
He was actually Aussie and was this phenom
Hmm.
and got lots of good press when he came out as like a very sort of talented player, and then kind of went down the dark side almost, kind of went off the
Hmm.
rails a little behaviorally and all of that. So
Yeah.
so he has this unfortunate distinction as being the loser in the quickest tennis match in recorded history on the ATP Tour. So Jarkko Nieminen, I guess of Finland, I think.
Finland?
Yeah,
Yeah.
beat Tomic in 28 minutes and 20 seconds. So 6-love, 6-1. Um,
Six.
yeah, 6-love,
Yeah.
6-1. It wasn't a double bagel. This was one of those 3-set matches, of course.
Okay.
But what's
Got it.
interesting, I think he was then fined. Like Tomic was fined for the match because I think he was found to, what do they call it, tanking. He was
Yeah,
thought
throwing
as
away
being
the match.
throwing away the match or tanking basically. So
Hmm.
although the Margaret Court actually won the 1963 the Eastern Grass Court Championships in 24 minutes. But supposedly the official all-time record on the women's side, or maybe just across all matches, it sounds
Hmm.
like, was Suzanne Lenglen, who after whom one of those French
Yeah.
Open courts is named. She beat someone named Mola Mallory in 23 minutes.
Oh
But this was in
gosh.
the 1922 Wimbledon final, so quite several years ago.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
but yeah, I mean,
It's.
this is probably one record I could break.
I mean, you had to really kind of be losing those games 40 love or at most 40-15 for you to finish the match that quickly. Literally.
You're right. I
So
think it's a combination of several things, right? It's like the rally's probably not too long. You must be hitting a lot of aces. You're probably like Iga or Medvedev, where your first serve and your second serve just like in 5 seconds. You don't like work your serve clock like Novak, which he takes what 23, 24 seconds, right?
and no bathroom
No
breaks.
bathroom breaks. That's true that there's a few other things that come into the picture here, but yeah,
It's still incredible that I can't imagine match getting finished in 30
yeah,
minutes
like a
today.
professional level match, right? Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, crazy stat.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so now down to our last one for this set of questions. Ready?
All right, the last one.
This is a straightforward one, or at least question-wise. What is a protected ranking? Have you heard of that?
You think? No, it seems like one of those IOC Olympic Committee driven ranking or like some bureaucratic involvement in ranking. To me, it just seems like the whole protected ranking. They seem to be oxymoron.
That's
Right?
a good call. That's right.
Either you're protected because whatever, you have a wild card, or you're ranked because based on performance. So I don't know who actually conjured this phrase or term, protected ranking.
This reeks of someone retroactively thinking, "Gosh, I really want this player in my tournament. How do I do that?" So, um,
No matter how many games you lose, you will protect your ranking. That's what it tells me.
so anyway, so the official definition, if you want to know, is sometimes it's called a special ranking. So I'll read this out verbatim. It allows players who have been out of the competition for a minimum of 6 months due to injury. They can use their ranking that was valid at the time of injury to then enter a tournament that requires ranking to actually qualify. So I think Rafa is like a good example. Like he has this, or Roger had a
Rafa is
knee problem, right? So right at the time he had a knee problem, he was probably top 10, or wrist problem, whatever it was, foot problem for Rafa. He would have been top 10 or whatever. And so then he kind of disappears off the face of the earth, but the ranking stays frozen when he hits the 6 month mark. So after that, he can, if you maybe he hits a situation where he cannot qualify for a slam, he can now use this protected ranking to now qualify for the slam.
So, if I understand this right, you're saying it's only for qualification purposes. They don't protect it for you on the ATP Tour.
That is correct. So, in fact, in bold, it says the protected ranking is only applicable, as you said, Raghu, for entry purposes. But it actually doesn't impact seeding. That's kind of the point they're trying to make. And it doesn't impact like the allocation of wild cards. So
I guess it has to come from some bucket. If you're not a wild card, you're not a special, whatever the other thing is, other few things are, and you're not ranked, so it has to come from some bucket.
So then it's
They
protected
can't, yeah,
ranking.
so it's
At some point, I feel like if I dug into these rule PDF documents somewhere in there, I'm bound to find literally special cases like if your first name is Rafael or your last name is Nadal, you can join this.
I bet these things are made up as they went along and saying, look, let's just create this new thing and ensure that these people get in the tournament.
It seems to be in the context of Grand Slam tournaments to enter the main draw. Because this reminds me of this notion of appearance fees. Have you heard of that?
As far as I understand, there's appearance fees for boxers. And in some sports, you get this fee. Like if you're a top track and field athlete, they get appearance fee. Like if they go run a certain meet in let's say Dubai or whatever, then they get fair fee, just as an incentive. But not in most of the sports.
Yeah. So this is a little bit of a digression from protected rankings, but it reminded me of that. So Andy Roddick actually covers that whole thing, like reveals this in his latest podcast, and I found it super fascinating. But in like the gist is some tournaments, like especially at the lower levels, like the 250s, in order to sell more tickets and to make the tournament itself attractive, as you can imagine, they invite specific players to come and participate, even if they don't need the points. So like if I did my backyard ATP 250 and I want Yannick Sinner to come, I probably need to pay him like gobs of money to attract him to come, so that my neighbors will come watch. Otherwise they'll be like, who cares? So that's the thing apparently. And actually Andy goes into like real numbers too, but I think it can go up to like $1 million just to show up in the draw. And some players get contracts, like Roger Federer got a contract with Queens for 10 years, I believe. Not Queens, Halle, which is going on right now.
Yeah.
He basically signed on and said, I will show up for the next 10 years, and probably got some ungodly sum in seven figures for that. So anyway, it reminded me of that when we talked about protected rank. Anyway, but that brings us to the end of these second batch of questions. I hope all 10-year-olds and real 10-year-olds and 10-year-olds in spirit enjoyed these questions and answers. Raghu, I hope I didn't make you sweat too much here.
This was fun. I don't think I actually got any of those answers, except maybe a little bit on one of them. But it definitely made me a little bit more savvy.
There you go. So that brings us to the end of our second savvy slice, I guess. So hopefully we made us a little savvier, and you, our listeners, savvier, and the 10-year-olds listening. I will be questioning you to see if you remember these facts or if you heard the podcast.
If you have any questions, send it our way and we'll just get the next top 10 questions.
That's right. If you want us to cover any such questions, do write us. If you listen to Spotify, there should be a place for you to leave this type of feedback, or hit us up on our socials. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
This is Slice Serve, a new tennis podcast by tennis nerds for wannabe tennis nerds. If you like this slice, which is our word for episodes, please subscribe to Slice Serve in your favorite podcast app. And if you especially know others who would enjoy this content, please consider spreading the word. We are at the Slice Serve on YouTube, X, and Instagram. And on the web, you can find us at www.sliceserve.com, where you'll find links to all our slices, but you cannot eat them. Until next time, see ya.